Hi, it's Romania Black. So, I just got back from my first MLB game. And it was so much fun. And that, for me, is saying something. So, this has been in the works for a very long time. I want to talk to you all in this video about my experience going to an MLB game because I'll be honest, over a year ago when I started watching Ace of the Diamond, I had no intention of ever watching a baseball game. I was like, this series won the poll of the sports anime, and I was like, okay, I don't like baseball. I know nothing about it. I guess I'll watch it, and maybe I'll learn something. And so, back in April, I realized, no, I love this series, and I want to go to a baseball game. I want to find one and go to. And other than like a local high school team, that I'm in a very rural area, so it's pretty few and far between. Other than that, there's not really any major baseball leagues near me. The closest one is St. Louis. And so I was like, I'll go to St. Louis. So I booked my ticket in April. My best friend, who does not, as it turns out, know baseball nearly as well as I thought she did. She was like, sure, I'll go. She's like, my grandma liked the Cardinals, okay. So she agreed to go with me, and I ended up like telling her things about the show. I'm like, well, I can talk to you about this. And so I'm back in April, got my tickets, got everything planned, and then went today to see the Cardinals versus the Cubs play in their Major League Baseball game, and it was wonderful. It felt like the game started at 1 o'clock, it ended at 5, it was like a 4. I felt like I watched 2 sets of Ace of the Diamond episodes, which if you think about it, 2 sets at 6 episodes is pretty much the length of a game in Ace of the Diamond. That was basically the same thing, but there were so many things that happened during the game that I was like, this is an Ace of the Diamond, oh my god, I want to talk about it. And the game itself creates this narrative, right? And so I wanted to make this video to just recap what all went on in the game. I'm sure if you watched it yourself, if you've been watching MLB games, then you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. But I'm going to give you my headcanon and my Ace of the Diamond-fication of that game to just tell you all, because I was fangirling. I was like, this is like a live-action version of Ace of the Diamond. It really makes me appreciate the anime that much more because of how realistic it is. I was like, oh wow, this is exactly how it is in that series. Crazy. So I made myself this Yakushi jersey. I'm pretty sure everyone there thought I was rooting for the Yankees and were like, who the hell's Todoroki? And I was like, we went out to eat dinner afterwards and the waiter was like, who's Todoroki? And I'm like, it's from this show called Ace of the Diamond. He was like, oh, okay. So you get that. But I'm pretty sure nobody had they were like, why aren't you wearing a Cardinals or Cubs jersey? And I'm like, because I don't own one. And so I was pretty happy. We ended up it was a scorching hot game. I'm going to be telling you guys, I'm going to show you guys pictures and clips from the game over on this side here. It was scorching hot. It was 98 degrees at the height of the game, and the heat index was 104. So we were lucky that we were centered on the west side of the stadium, and so we were in the shade for most of the game, luckily. But there were little mini ambulance golf carts toting around the entire game with sirens going off. There was a guy that was 5 rows ahead of us that passed out because of heat exhaustion. It was really, really hot, and luckily it wasn't humid, it was just hot. So you didn't feel like you were smothering, but there were a lot of people passed out or had heat strokes. And it really made me feel for the players on the field because I was like, oh my God, if we're sitting here in the stands and we're this exhausted, we haven't done anything. They're out there running and pitching and catching and standing out in the sun. They have no shade. It really gave me a big appreciation of the players playing in the games because I'm like, oh my God. It also made me realize, like, when Furuya was having a heat stroke, I'm like, no, this is real. Furuya's heat stamina issue, real deal, right? If you can be in this 104 degree weather, craziness. But yeah, the popcorn bag that I had, the print from the popcorn bag melted onto my hand. It was so hot. I was like, oh my God, it was a scorcher for sure. And so we went and watched the Cardinals, and I took my death note. I took my black notebook with me. I was such a dork. I was taking notes the entire time. Like I have 5 pages of notes that I would do per inning of just things about it because I was like, I wanted to know more. I wanted to soak in the game and learn everything I could about it. So I was that person in the stands. I'm pretty sure no one else had a notebook taking score. I felt like Nabe. I was Sniper Nabe, taking notes, getting stuff ready. I'm sure some guy probably thought I was a journalist or something, writing an article. Maybe. I hope he thought that. But anyway, So it was the Cardinals versus the Cubs. It was game 2 of their 3-game series, and I found out that they had lost to the Cubs the night before. So this was the Cardinals' chance for redemption. They lost the night before to the Cubs, and going into this, I had several people in the Discord that knew I was going. They were like, yeah, the Cardinals have a pretty good team this year, and they're trying to really go for it because Molina and Pujols are retiring this year. And even myself, who knows nothing about baseball aside what I've learned from Ace of the Diamond, I knew who Pujols and Molina were. I was like, they were around when I was younger playing ball, and they're retiring now. I think Pujols is 42 and Molina's 39, so they're pretty up there for baseball standards, right? They were not defrosted and brought back out onto the field for this game. No, I was telling my friend, I'm like, I bet with them being as old as they are and them wanting to do well and go to the World Series, they're not going to bring them out for just this random game. No, and they didn't. But in any case, the other players I was told to watch for were Paul Goldschmidt. Everybody in the Discord said he was the hot power hitter. You guys were not wrong. And then he's a first baseman. And then for the Cardinals, and also for the Cardinals was Nolan Arenado, who's the third baseman. He was great. And then my dad, I talked to him before I went, and he was like, you should look for Bader. He's number 48 for the Cardinals. And he's the, I think he was the shortstop. Was Bader, and he was pretty good too. So I had a lot of Cardinals players to look for. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the Discord said the Cubs didn't have a good team this year. They won the night before, so I was like, okay, well maybe things will be different. And what a game this was. So I want to walk you all through it. I did a little bit of research before sitting down to record this about the pitchers because I'm all about the batteries. Ace of the Diamond's all about their batteries. I am too. So the main pitchers in these games, you had Mikolas with his beautiful 70s mustache. That was the Cardinals pitcher, and then you had Adrian Sampson, who was the Cubs pitcher, and they pitched for most of the game before things got wild. They pitched the first half of the game or more before things went into crazy mode, into crazy town. We'll talk about it. But Mikolas, I did a little bit of research on him. He actually played in Japan for 3 years, which I thought was really cool. His nickname is the Lizard King. I was like, interesting. I now want to see Sawamura with a mustache and a gold chain around him. That's all I want to see. And everybody in the Discord was like, no. But he actually had a surgery in 2020 for repairing his flexor tendon in his right arm, and he had in 2021 a right arm forearm sprain. So I was actually surprised he did as well as he did today. And we'll talk about that. That makes a lot of sense with how he was pitching in the game. And then Sampson, he played a season in Korea overseas as well. And so then we had a bunch of other pitchers come in, which I'll talk about, but the catcher throughout the entire Cubs game was Contreras. He was the catcher for the entire game, and I found out he's played only for the Cubs his entire career. He struck me kind of like Miyuki Contreras did because he was the only catcher the entire game, and he worked with several different pitchers from the Cubs, and I was like, man, I had mad respect for Contreras because he did a good job batting in the game, and then he also did a fair job catching with all the pitchers he had to deal with. So I was like, that sounds kind of like Miyuki. And then for the Cardinals, there was Knizner, who was the starting catcher, and he's only played for 4 years, only for St. Louis. I thought it was cool that you had 2 catchers that have only played for those teams starting out the games. And then Herrera was the catcher that came in the second half for the Cardinals, and this is his debut year. And I thought for being a debut year, for being his first couple games, I thought he did pretty well. But yeah, let's talk about this game. It was like a game out of Ace of the Diamond. I was so excited to watch this game and see it unfold. And I'm sure if you've watched games, you don't know exactly what the players are saying to each other or doing, but you get these little head cannons. And so the entire game, I was like, wow, what's going on? So the first inning just was pretty much 0-0 until the Cardinals went to bat, and then Arenado got a double. Goldschmidt got him first, and then Donovan, who's a Cardinals hitter, managed to make it to where it was 2-0 by the end of the first inning. And then they pretty much held off. The second inning was the same thing. It still was 2-0. There was a missed double play, which kind of sucked for the Cubs. They missed a double play, and that was rough. I was like, ooh. And then the third inning and fourth inning were pretty much just 2-0. It was 1 up, 3 down. It was back and forth. Mikolas and Sampson were just up and down all the plays and all the strikeouts. It was interesting. Yepez is a player from the Cardinals that reminded me a lot of Zono. He reminded me a lot of Zono, not only in his physique, but just his mannerisms. I kept thinking of Zono. I was like, wow. And he kept hitting the ball the same direction as Zono. I was like, wow, he's kind of like Zono. It's cool. And he had a really awesome play at the end of the game, which we'll talk about. But I really thought that was cool. He reminded me a lot of him. But when you get to knowing by the end of the fifth inning, Mikolas was at about 60 pitches. And I noticed that his pitches were not very fast. That's why in the Discord I said he kind of reminded me of Sawamura. He had some really effective pitches, but they were only like, he topped out at like 84 miles an hour. That was about it. It was mainly 74 to 84 miles an hour for his pitches. And that was pretty consistent, but it wasn't like a big fastball. It wasn't anything like crazy, right? Whereas Samson, he kind of reminded me more of Furuya in a sense, because he was doing like 92 mile an hour pitches. He was doing a lot faster pitches, but his pitch count was way higher. He was doing like, Mikolas had 60 pitches by the end of the fifth inning, and Samson had 75. So he was a little bit ahead of him in terms of that. And then, trying to think if anything crazy happened. Up through the fifth inning, things were pretty much 2-0, and I was like, man, this is a pretty cool game, but there's nothing crazy going on. And then we got to the sixth inning, and I just like a whole page of notes on the sixth inning. The sixth inning was the long inning. It was so long that at one point I thought we were at the bottom of the seventh and we were at the bottom of the sixth. And I was like, whoa, I feel like we've gone through 2 innings and we're still on the same thing. Things fell apart in the sixth inning. And I was like, oh, this was like a cliffhanger from Ace of the Diamond. I was like, oh, we've been doing fine. 2-0, Cardinals winning. And then things got crazy. So we started getting more walks. Mikolas got up by the sixth inning. By the end of the sixth, Mikolas was up to 89 pitches, which I was like, okay. And knowing now that he's had an injury in the past, I was like, oh, that's why you could kind of see some fatigue starting to set in with him. He had 29 balls and 60 strikes. And then he managed to get a strikeout with one guy had 3 balls, 2 strikes, and there were 2 outs. And it was like a really cool play. It was that final strikeout to end the inning. And it was like to end the Cardinals out in defense. It was really cool. I liked it. But at this point, Samson was at 93 pitches. And so they took Samson out at 93 pitches in the sixth inning, and they put in number 50, which was Wick. And Wick, come to find out, the Cubs have a lot of new pitchers. They've got a lot of young pitchers. They have Wick and 2 others that we're going to talk about that are all like first, second, third year pitchers. And this is like their first couple of years in the major leagues. And so they're rookies. And so it was interesting. But yeah, Carlson managed to get a double and Arenado got home, so it was 3-1. The Cubs called a timeout, and I made a comment being like, "Oh look,
power of Nakama is gonna save this inning."
I was like, they're gonna use the power of the Nakama to win the game. They called their first timeout. I was like, oh, we're having a huddle. We're having a huddle on the pitcher's mound. Yes, we're doing it. They're talking to each other because Wick was being the new pitcher, and it was like, oh, the catcher Contreras was like, okay, come on, let's get in the game. Let's do this. And then while this was going on, you could tell that Mikolas was starting to get a little bit worn out. And so Gallegos, number 65 for the Cardinals, was starting to warm up. And it was really cool from where we were sitting. We were behind home plate. So we kind of see, I wanted to sit behind home plate because I was like, if I'm going to go to this one MLB game, I'm going to see the pitcher's pitch. I want to be up close and see the pitcher's pitch. And so it was really fun getting to sit behind home plate. We were off a little ways, but getting to sit behind there and see the pitching, the ball coming at, and you kind of see some of the different pitches, which I'll talk about in a minute, but that was really cool. But you could see out from the distance the bullpen, and you could see them practicing pitching. And of course, they, unlike high school ball, they have like a big projector thing that tells you who's warming up and everything. So that was really cool. So Gallegos was warming up, and then also Oviedo from the Cardinals is warming up as well. And so then Yepes, he gets out, but Donovan, he almost goes home, and then they have a second timeout with the Cubs, and then they bring in a third pitcher, like within the same inning. Like we're still in the sixth inning, and Wick was there for barely a whole inning, and they took him out and bring in Efros, which is a new pitcher for the Cubs, and they bring him in, and I was like, this relay is getting a little out of hand. And because Wick was basically, it was like a 40-minute inning and nothing was happening. It was just, we were walking people. He got like 1 out. It was taking so long. They replaced him with Efros. And he threw sliders. I could see it I think I got some videos of it, but there were a couple of his pitches. I'm like, oh, that's a slider. It felt like Nori. I was like, oh my God, it's like Nori senpai. He's throwing a slider because you could see his arm, his swing arm has come out and that ball like go it felt like a slider. I was like, it was so freaking cool. I really liked it. I'm probably wrong on what type of pitch it was, but it was really neat. And so then at this point, my best friend, who has been watching me take notes the entire time, and we're in the 6th inning of the game, was like, are you like ranking the guys' butts over there? I was like, no, I missed the opportunity to do that. For the record, though, all these professional baseball players are thick. They did not skip leg day. They did not skip arm day. No, sir. I was like, damn. Which, again, we've talked about Ace of Diamond. You got to be muscular to be an athlete in this event. And I was like, man, you could really tell. Like, they were some buff dudes. So yeah, the Cubs, they struggled at the bottom of the 6th inning. Someone behind me in the stands was saying, man, this inning has ground to a halt. And ground to a halt it did. It was really bad. Bader got out and everybody was booing the calls. Efros, he finished out the inning finally by striking out at Edmund from the Cardinals, and he had this fiery last pitch that you could tell he had a lot of energy behind, and I was like, oh yeah, he's ready to get this final out and for them to be done. I wanted to make notes. Contreras stayed catcher with all of the pitchers for the Cubs in this game, which I thought was pretty impressive that he was the battery for all of them. And I don't know if that speaks to the Cubs not having as good of catchers other than Contreras, but Contreras, I had a lot of respect for him for staying in all 9 innings. It was a full 9-inning game in 104-degree heat index, and Contreras did all of it and still bat and did everything. I was like, that's pretty impressive. And the fact that he could do a battery with these, but it's kind of cool. It reminds me a little bit of Sato. The Cubs do a little bit in the fact that they have these rookie pitchers. They have like 3 of them. We'll talk about the 3rd rookie pitcher, the 4th pitcher they brought out. And I was like, oh my God. But yeah, in the 6th inning alone, they swapped out Sampson for Wick and then Wick for Efros in the same inning. And so he worked in a battery with all 3 of them and did the best he could. And it was like, okay. So it was still 3-1 going in the 7th inning. And at this point, I was like, okay, we're in the 7th inning. That's going to be it. Cardinals are going to win. We're going to call it. Fun game. Great times. And the 7th inning was a blast. Gallegos came in as the Cardinals pitcher. Looking him up later and finding out that he's relatively new. He's been around for a couple years, but he's only been playing for St. Louis for a brief period of time. He did fine. And they took out Krisner as Krisner and Mikolas went out. They brought in Gallegos and they brought in Herrera, who is a new catcher. This is like literally his first year playing in the major leagues for the Cardinals. And so they had a really, really, really cool double play for the Cardinals. They did the 5-4-3 double play where they went to third base, then went to first base. It was awesome. It was freaking, the third baseman caught it, took it to second place to get him out, took it to first place to get him out. The 5-4-3 play, it was great. Everybody was freaking out. It was a lot of fun. I was like, okay, I see where all the appeal is. Everybody just freaking out in the stands. It was such a cool experience. And then at this point, the Cubs bring in their 4th pitcher of the game, which is Leiter Jr., and he has Contreras as captain, as catcher still. And so he manages to do fine. He struck out 2 people. There were 2 singles and then finally got another out. But then you have the Cubs went up to bat into the 8th inning, and Morel, he had done like 3 strikeouts the entire game, and he finally got a single run. And then Gallegos, we got a balk, y'all. We got an actual balk. I was like, oh my God, which it was the dumbest thing because you had Morel was on base. And yeah, he had a little bit of a lead off of second. But then there was no reason for Gallegos to turn around and do the balk. He didn't throw it. It was so cool to see it in real life because I was like, oh, that's a thing. When it happened with Sal Murrah and Ace of the Diamond, I'm like, that's something that actually happens in the major leagues. It did. And everybody was like, what are you doing? And at this point, the Cubs got fired up and Ortega hit a home run, getting him and Morel home and tied the game 3-3 in the 8th inning. And everybody was freaking out. And it's like you'd sprinkled blood into the water because it's the 8th inning. Everyone's hot. Everyone's sweaty. Everyone's tired. You have all these players have been out playing for 8 full innings where it's like 4:00 in the afternoon and they've just tied the game 3-3. There was blood in the water and the fans were turning into sharks. And it was like, oh my gosh. And at this point, Gallegos was only in for that 1 inning. By the 8th inning, Gallegos was gone. They were like, nope, you just got us tied. Nope. And they replaced him with Helsey. And Helsey is a relatively new pitcher as well, who's had lots of injuries, but he's known as, I guess, a relief pitcher for the Cardinals. And he was fired up. Helsey was like, let's do this. And so Contreras ended up getting walked by him, which at first I was like, you just came out here and you walked the main catcher. It felt like a very Miyuki moment where they walked him. I was like, okay. And then his first pitch right out the bat was 97 miles an hour. And I was like, oh shit, this guy's like not playing around. And so it slowed a little bit. There was like a couple upper 70s pitches. But then the catcher missed a pitch with Happ. And Contreras managed to get to second, and Happ got out, but then Contreras went to third, and it was like, okay, oh my God, the Cubs are going to get a run. It's going to be 4-3 in the 8th inning. It's going to get crazy. And then there was a player, Wisdom, that was walked. Contreras was still on third. There was a timeout with the Cardinals. And then finally, Horner was up to bat, and Helsey struck him out. And so then the Cardinals went up to bat. And then Yepes, he managed to get a double, which reminded me a lot of Zono. He had a hit that was like right down the line into left field that reminded me so much of Zono. I was like, yeah, Yepes and Zono, they're like this. They have spirit, the same spiritual energy there. It was great. But then he got on second base, and they did this one move. I'm going to have to research it. I'm sure you all will comment down below. But he was on second base, and then this guy Sosa came out and replaced him. What is that? What is that? He was the designated hitter. Yepes was the designated hitter, which I thought meant that he hit for the pitcher. The pitcher didn't go up to bat. He hit for them instead. But Sosa replaced him. I'm like, what is that? How does that work? What move is that? I'm not used to that. I don't think we've seen that in Ace of the Diamond. I was like, is this an MLB only thing? I was like, what? I'm probably going to ask the Discord when I'm done recording this video. I'm probably going to ask them to find out, but I'm sure you all will comment down below as well. But it was crazy. And Sosa reminded me a lot of Kuramochi. He was like getting a major leadoff base. He ends up like he stole the third base when the catcher lost the ball. The new pitcher that they had, Leiter Jr., he pitched the ball and the catcher missed, and Contreras, it went off his glove, and then Sosa stole to third. And then the Cubs had another timeout, and then Bader was hit by the pitcher. Leiter Jr. hit Bader with the ball, and so he got to walk to base. And so then Herrera, who is the catcher, he hit past third base, like barely. It was a little pop ball. It was right on the edge. It was a little pop fly ball and got out. But Sosa managed to get home, and Bader managed to get to second. And then Edman, the shortstop, got Bader home, and it was 5-3. It was 5-3, and then the Cubs went out. In the 9th inning, we found out that there were 45,000 people at the stadium for this game, which is insane that there were 45,000 people there. And then Helsey came out in the final inning. Helsey wanted to end it because it was the Cubs' last time up to bat. And if the Cardinals could hold them out, then they would have won the game if the Cubs couldn't do any scoring. And they tried, but man, Helsey came out blazing. And the second out that he got against Rivas, his first pitch was 101 miles an hour. The second pitch was 100 miles an hour. The third pitch was 101 miles per hour. And all three were straight strikes. He just struck him out. And it was like, damn. And Helsey was not playing. He was like, I want to end this and have the game be over in the 9th inning. And they did. He managed to get 3 outs, and they won 5-3. There were fireworks. It was cool. At this point, my phone was starting to overheat, so as I was taking pictures of them waving the flag, it was a little jarring because I was like, man, my phone's about to die. But it was a lot of fun. It was so cool seeing like the things like the bulk, the 5-4-3 double play, to see the pop flies and everything, to see all the moves at Ace of the Diamond that we've seen in that show happen in real life. It was so cool. There were a lot of balls that managed to go out into the crowd during the game. There were some that went to our left and right, but none came directly where we were at. But it was so much fun, and I'm so thankful that I got to actually go to a Major League Baseball game. And the thing of it is, I want to watch more games now. I actually want to watch games. So I know the Cardinals and the Cubs are playing tomorrow, and the Cubs have won a game and the Cardinals have won a game. So now I want to see who's going to win all three. I was like, who's going to be the tiebreaker? So it's such a testament to an anime, to a show like this, to take someone like me who started out watching this series a year ago, had zero interest in baseball, zero knowledge of it, and was just watching the show because, one, it won the poll, and two, I was curious. I was like, well, everybody wants me to watch it and say it's great, so we'll see. And now it's literally my favorite sports anime, and I love baseball now. So I want to watch more baseball now because of this series. But it was such a great experience, and I have you all for voting for this show to thank for it. So thank you so much for voting for Ace of the Diamond to win this. It's really made me appreciate this sport so much, and now I have a newfound appreciation for it, and I can't wait to watch more games. I did the stereotypical thing. I got a hot dog at the game and promptly spilled it ketchup all over my jersey promptly, like 5 minutes into the game. I'm like, well, here we go. So fun times, but thank you so much. Fellow patrons, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Thank you all who support on YouTube and Patreon and Twitter and wherever else, because of you all voting, I was able to watch this series and go to this game, and now I have a newfound appreciation for it, and I can't wait to watch more. So I know that I still have another week's worth of episodes of the anime yet to watch, and we still have the manga to start catching up on for Ace of the Diamond, but I'm so hyped now. It was so much fun. I got home about half an hour ago, and I'm like, I need to sit down and just talk about my experience and talk about how much fun it was with you all and just share that journey. So anyway, I'll round this out with a couple clips that I took from the game with some special thanks to Patreon on here, but otherwise I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you all have enjoyed my reactions to Ace of the Diamond. We're not done yet. We still have the manga to go after next week, but in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will be back very soon with more reactions to Ace of the Diamond. Bye.
Suffered a casualty.